Before anyone dismisses this video or dislikes it just based on the title, have a bit of a listen, because some of the Americans, and a lot of them actually, that I speak to, don't know there's such a disparity in what I'm about to say. Your turn, Yugi boy. So, Shonen Jump has been announced, the new promo card has been announced, and it is Summon Sorceress, which is an incredibly powerful meta card. And the important thing here is meta. So this is for specifically just the annual members, and it is for the US of A and Canada only, which we all know by now. We should all know by now that Shonen Jump is exclusively, the cards, or the legality of it are exclusively just for America, because it's only printed in America and Canada. That is the reason why we can't use it in Europe, and also in, I think, Mexico. I think the legality is as well there. So, before I go on to, I just want to give a bit of a history of this as a player who has played in Europe. And before anyone tells me, because I get this all the time as a response, is, well, why don't you just move to America? You're funny, right? Totally not annoyed by that comment all the time, and now it's just going to be spammed in the comments, but regardless, that's fine. Shonen Jump was released in 2002, and its first promo was Blue Eyes. That was the very first promo, and throughout its history, it's always had kind of promos, whether that be promos of different artworks with Blue Eyes and Red Eyes and all the others. And also it had a big mix of meta cards and non-meta cards. I think it's safe to say casual cards. It's always been towards the side of meta, but you know, there have been a lot of really random stuff, but just going over them, there's some really big ones, like Dandelion was obviously in there, Tragodia, Beast King Barbarous was quite a nice one at the time, and there's just so many more. And throughout that, there have been some slight issues and, let's say, bias with the printing. So, more recently, in recent times, America, or Shonen Jump, have given their target market the ability to basically vote on a couple of cards, and then the most popular one is normally printed. The problem with that, and this isn't a video on the problem of the voting aspect, it's just in general, is that people normally pick the meta cards or the favorite cards that they want, and it's not just exclusively America and Canada who like those cards. If it's been voted most popular in the community, that people want it, it's wanted worldwide and not just by the Americans and the Canadians. So, going forward, we now have this. And just to give an example of why this kind of irks me a bit, is that historically, and not only historically, currently and presently, the European players and anyone else who isn't included in the Shonen Jump region that get it printed, there is a massive disparity in when we can play the cards. We just don't know when the card is legal for us. A card, if you don't know, is a card that's printed in Shonen Jump and also the mangas that we have. A card is only legal for us to play in Europe or wherever it isn't printed when the card is reprinted legally in our territory. So for example, let's take Quasar Shooting Quasar Dragon. That was printed in a tin, I think it was. I can't remember exactly where it was now. And only then can it be printed, and only then can it be played. So it has to be in like a special edition or a special set that we normally get. So like a battle pack or something like that, we normally get it in. Or if the tin special editions or the mega tin, something like that, that's when it's legal. The problem is the length of time that takes. We don't know at all when that card will be reprinted for us. So we just don't know when it's going to be legal for us, and if it's a meta-depending card, then that kind of blows it out of the water. I'm going to give you just two examples. There's loads more, but I'm just going to give you two of the type of disparity that there is. So, Shooting Quasar Dragon was released in a Shonen Jump in the December 2011 subscription. So 2011 in December, the 1st of December. Right? Fair enough? The next time that was printed for us, legally, the first time that Europe and Mexico and all them could legally play that card was when it was printed in the Legendary Collection 5Ds in 2014. In October 2014. There's nearly 3-year gap between when America can play a card, America and Canada, and we can play a card. Shooting Quasar Dragon wasn't exactly a non-meta card. That was used by a lot of people. That was a really interesting card. There's a lot of things you could do with that. We couldn't play it. And only then, when it was irrelevant, We get the card printed. Now, the other one that I kind of want to talk about that is actually a really good example of something that impacts America and impacts Europe differently. So take, for example, Utopia Lightning. Utopia the Lightning. That was printed in the books. It was in the manga, and this the same. The argument applies for the same. America had that. That was fine. We didn't have that anytime soon. There was an event in Europe, the European Championships in Dublin. It was, and it was when Cleethorpes and Tower Turbo run riot because that current weekend. Wavering Eyes came out in the special edition. So Wavering Eyes was like a $20 card or £20 European card, and it was very important. What's the fees? What's the interesting thing about this event? Towers Turbo destroyed the event. Everyone ran it. It topped basically all over the place. Do you know why? It didn't happen in America either, because Lightning was an out to Towers. We didn't have an out to it. Another one that was a potential out to Towers was a Diamond Crab King that was also printed in the manga. Guess what? We also didn't have that because it wasn't printed for us either. It came out in the Wing Raiders set that was way after the event. I think it was 2015 euros, and the Wing Raiders was printed in 2016. So for that event, because of that meta card that we didn't get, that wasn't included for us, it destroyed an event, and we couldn't actually do anything about it. It was incredibly unfair. There's another card that we currently don't have, and we actually really need to help us progress in our links and our decks, and that's Link Karibo. That was released in December 2017. 4 months on, we still don't have it. Now that's normal. It can often take 6 months to a year to more for us to normally get a card. One of the few ones that actually got printed pretty quickly, I believe, was Frightfur Tiger. I think that actually got printed pretty quickly, as opposed to just being an American exclusive for quite a while. Looking at it here, it was, it was, sorry, I tell a lie, it was, because it was in the Clash Rebellion special edition. So it was printed pretty quickly a couple of months after. So that was one of the few that I do remember that actually had an impact, because Frightfur Tiger was a card that we couldn't play. We couldn't play that deck without Frightfur Tiger, so they did eventually release it and was pretty good. But my argument is, I don't particularly have a problem with the idea of Shonen Jump and promo cards. The problem I have is printing exclusive meta cards that exclude an entire continent and other regions. So only America get to play these meta cards and progress their decks, progress their strategies, and achieve the goals, and play the deck to its fullest. While on the other hand, we can't. All because of a licensing issue. And this is basically what it is. I haven't spoken to anyone at Konami about this. I don't know the full logistic reason, but I can only guess. And my guess is that it's just basically a licensing issue. Now, if you look at Shonen Jump, their strategy is that they get annual subscriptions. They get people to buy into it because there's a promo card that's a chase card. Now, I understand that the majority of the chase cards, more often than not, unless it's a really popular, like, you know, a Dark Magician Girl or something like that, it's normally going to be meta cards that people want. It's not just going to be something crap. And I understand that. That's how they need to sell it. But you are completely isolating an entire market. Now, I don't know what the legality is. I don't know why they don't extend this over to the European areas. There's a lot of people out there. I've heard some people say, well, potentially it could be because that there isn't a big enough market. People wouldn't buy into the subscriptions, and the printing costs and the shipping costs would just be too much. If you take into consideration that you've got the UK, you've got Germany, you've got Italy, you've got Spain, you've got also Greece, you've got all these big places that have decent followings, and I mean decent, I just don't believe that for a second. I must assume that it's because of Brexit. It's because, well, not just Brexit, but it's just because of the costs that there are. Now, another one that it could be, and this is probably the more feasible one, is the localization of the cards. The Shonen Jump is only in one language. It's in English. If you were to release it in the different territories, you know, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, all these that have their separate languages, maybe that's why. The cost of that would be far too much. And then you are technically isolating, I don't know, the legality issues as well of releasing an only English print in in different countries, but in different non-English speaking countries, but that is probably the more, you know, logical thing that they won't do, and that's why they won't do it, because they won't localize it. Now, I still think it is incredibly unfair, because you could still just release it to the English-speaking countries, make it available for a product that your locals can actually purchase from their retailers, or, well, from their distributors, I should say, and then they can make that decision up to themselves. And I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it. If there's a popular demand at locals for such a product, people will have it. Now, I understand that that goes slightly against the whole remit of the subscription basis, but I'm sure they could figure it out. They're big boys, they've done it before. The problem with having such a, you know, exclusive promo that the world doesn't really get to see as a whole is that cards start to get left behind. There are cards on the list. If you just go to the legality card list, cards not available to play, there are quite a few on there. For us, we can't play Stardust Spark Chronicles. Stardust Chronicle Spark Dragon, sorry. Can't play Gagaga Head, number 72. Beelzus, the Diabolical Dragons, Infernity General. Clearwing Fast Dragon. We can't play all these cards because they haven't been printed in our regions yet. I find that incredibly unfair. Now, if we flip it, if you say, well, I'm sure, you know, European languages and a continent has cards and exclusives, I struggled to find them. The only one that I can think of an exact opposite, the same thing happening to Europe, same thing that happening to Canada and America, that we got an exclusive card. The only thing I can think of is Santa Claus. That was in the German, only released in Germany, in the German Advent calendar. Now, I know there is an Advent calendar that's going to be coming out for the TCG as a whole, but that is the only thing that I can think of that we ever got a exclusive card. And then it was printed pretty soon after, I do believe. I can't remember exactly when it was, but that is the only one I can think of. And that was incredibly frustrating, because the only other good thing, and it's not even a good thing, and a lot of people point this out, that we get over America and Canada, we get our products a day earlier. That's right. Our product is officially released on a Thursday. America and Canada get it on a Friday. Apparently that's enough of an argument for a lot of Americans and Canadians to make to me when I'm talking about this. Shut up and sit down. That's really not fair. In a perfect world, what would my thing be? I think it's fine to have a subscription-based promo card. I have no problem with that. As I said, the only problem I have is that if you have such pinnacle cards that are required for decks worldwide, like Sorceress, like Linkuriboh, it's unfair. If you are not going to provide these cards, then what's the point in playing the deck? You isolate decks. And the problem with specifically Linkuriboh and Summon Sorceress is that they aren't just archetype cards. They are used in so many different Link decks. They are imperative key cards to achieve goals. So you're isolating the players, and it's not good. We have no idea when this is going to be reprinted for us, because they can't do it straight away, because then that completely undermines the idea of the subscription basis. Americans would just say, well, I know this is going to be printed in a month, so I'll just wait. I know a majority obviously will sign up for it just to get the cards, and the whole high rarity thing, people will just wait for it. But if players knew in America and Canada that Europe was going to get a print that was going to be easier to get because it'd be in a special edition, or it would be much cheaper, if they knew that that was going to happen, they wouldn't buy into the subscription basis. And I realised that the whole argument is a catch-22 thing, but it's unfair, and it needs to be looked at, because you're isolating an entire continent of people. And this card, more than anything, I've actually seen a very angry reaction to the community. In the community, I've seen a lot of angry people, because it is seriously unfair on a mass amount of players. And I don't think that it's actually just being salty about something. I understand that, you know, there will always be cards that if they do keep up, I know they will, keep up the promotional based subscription, there will obviously be cards that people will want throughout the world, and no one's going to be completely happy at the fact that there is exclusivity in a certain continent. But what you could at least do is extend it to the world. And you will probably get more money. I understand that there may be some, as I said, legality issues with only releasing an English text in a non-English speaking country, but just, I don't know. I don't know if that is true or not, but at least offer it, because currently it's unfair. Even, you could just say, well, it's still legal. Just because it's not printed, that's fine. You have to go out and buy a product these days anyway. I know it's going to be harder to get and arguably it will bump the price, but at least just make it legal. Otherwise, it's just seriously unfair. And if not, the card that is released first has to be easily accessible, like the special editions, because then it makes it a bit fairer. But in the perfect world, I would just keep up the subscription-based cards, promos, that's no problem. But they should be non-meta hinging cards. Things like Galaxy Eye Cypher Blade Dragon is fine. Things like Apprentice Illusion Magician, you know? Special cards for those decks, while I said it's never going to be fair, and it's never going, well, totally fair, and it's never going to be a perfect world once you start excluding people, but at least it won't completely isolate an entire competitive market. So I want to know what you guys think. If you're coming from the American and Canadian standpoint, what do you think of your fellow European and Mexican and all the others that I might have ignored? Well, basically the other side of the TCG market that don't get it. Do you think it's fair, or do you just think, hey, you should just shut up and just wait for it to come? So let me know down in the comment section below. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe, and I should catch you guys later.